Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Wild West Banter podcast. On today's episode, we are going to be going over the executives, scouts, and coaching rankings as far as each positions in the NFL, as well as giving some AFC playoff predictions, going over rookie class expectations, and touching on some biggest question marks for each team heading into training camp. We do have a new face on here, a very special guest. We have talked about him in the past. He is our biggest Steeler fan that we know. His name is Ryan Griffin. My name is Nick Carr, always joined by Matthew. But Ryan, how you doing today?
Doing well. I'm ready to talk some football. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Yeah, no, we're excited. Matthew, I always like to get your take as well. How's the last week treated you as we're getting closer to training camp?
Well, I was looking at flights on how I can get to L.A. to visit the Bolt for training camp. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make that happen this year, so a little sad about that, but same as last week, super excited to have Ryan on. I'm excited to see I might have to play middle and break up some fights between Nick and Ryan. They tend to just go at it like little kids when they talk about the Steelers. So
Ryan's delusional, so
it should be fun. It'll give us a little bit of an outside perspective from non-AFC West fans to kind of see what they're thinking about our division outside of the blinders that we might have, and then we can talk about the Steelers a little bit. But yeah, that's before we get started. I do want to display something here.
Oh God!
So it was my birthday a couple weeks ago, and Nick made the purchase that had to just make an appearance on the podcast here. Take that box here. So we have a Justin Herbert signed mini helmet, and it is the Navy's. So this is going to be, I got to find a spot somewhere to display this on the podcast, but I had to get that on here. This will probably be worth like $10 million when he's the GOAT. So
yeah. It was actually given to me for free. Yeah, it was. No one wanted it, so that's why I got it for free. Because Justin Herbert sucks.
Helmet is going to accumulate is going to be awesome. But no, yeah, I'm excited. Ready to get started here. I do want to just, and if you guys are good.
Yeah, I mean, all I have to say is I'm excited that we have Ryan here because we've already had someone from the AFC South and Tyler, and now we have someone from the AFC North here with Ryan. I don't know any AFC East fans.
Justin.
Justin.
Oh, no.
What are you talking about?
South.
He's a Colts fan. But yeah, I don't know anyone that any crazy Bills fans or anything. So
just bring Jake.
We could bring Jake on.
If Jake listens to this, just bring Jake. He's a fan of anybody in the division. So
yeah.
So cool.
Well, yeah, wonderful. What are you thinking, Matthew?
The current state of the Steelers. Ryan, tell us what's going on in Steelers land. Anything new? Anything news breaking? What are you guys excited for? Training camps around the corner. Rookies report here in like 5 days.
Yeah, this week.
Yeah, rookies reporting this week. How's things going for the Steelers right now? What are your thoughts?
All right, yeah. So another year. I mean, the biggest one can't ignore Mike Tomlin, no longer the coach of the Steelers, and it's a little sad, but it was the right time, and I'm excited, to bring on the new staff. I think, Mike McCarthy at head coach. But I think what's bigger than that is the staff Mike McCarthy brought with him. I mean, we have a deeper staff now than we've ever had with Mike Tomlin. If I can fault Mike Tomlin for one thing, it's the lack of a coaching tree and just the depth in the overall coaching staff.
That's a good point.
Staying too loyal to coordinators for too long when production's not justifying it. But I'm excited. I think, when you look at it one for one, I don't think there's a lot to love about going Tomlin to Mike McCarthy at this point. But I do think, Mike McCarthy's offensive background is going to bring a new kind of breath of fresh air to a team that's really struggled on the offensive side of the ball since Ben Roethlisberger's retirement. Mm-hmm. And, so I'm really excited to see how that plays out. We're going to have, schematic changes on both sides of the ball. We've got a lot of leaders. We're an aged roster, so it's kind of limits the ceiling a little bit with that. But I think that the veteran presence on both sides of the ball, guys like TJ and Cam with defense, and obviously Aaron Rodgers going into his final season at quarterback, but you're laughing. But I think we have a few position battles I'm keeping an eye on. We've got to fill a spot or two on the offensive line. Specifically at right guard, we're having a competition there. We've pretty much got our tackles set for this year as far as starters go. With Fatanu, who's actually going to move over to the left side while Broderick is dealing with an injury. And but we've got Dunker, a rookie that is going to compete for right guard. I think I'd like to see him get in there at some point in his rookie season. But other than that, I think most excited about is just our depth of weapons that we have not had either. I think when you look at an offense, at wide receiver and running back specifically, we've had DK Metcalf now. We had him last year, but we never had a wide receiver too. We couldn't put together. It was just piecing together veterans and rookies, and it really kind of created a lot of strain and predictability with our offense. And so we got it. Michael Pittman Jr. coming in as a good kind of 1B or 2A, however you want to look at it. Wide receiver, I think will stabilize that. Drafted Jeremy Bernard in the second round. I think he's going to be able to step up at the wide receiver 3 position, and bringing in Rico Dowdle to replace Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Gainwell, man.
This
you guys
guy
got
is
me.
drunk already. What the hell?
I wish we had Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Gainwell departing. I liked what he did last year, but Rico Dowdle coming off a couple 1,000-yard rushing seasons to pair with Jalen Warren. So it's kind of looking forward to having some weapons.
Yeah. So, I mean, you talk about your weapons and your offense and new scheme here, but you also touched on an aging roster. So how do you get guys out of their way? And when we're talking about a guy like Aaron Rodgers or just a coach that has simply been in the league for a very long time now, how do you bring that together to frankly get some juice into that offense when maybe they might just be aged out?
Yeah, I mean, I think at quarterback, I think it still makes sense for this year because we have not done a good job at replacing Ben Roethlisberger. Everybody knows that. We haven't had a franchise quarterback come in and be able to take the reins really in 5 years now.
Yeah.
And so I think that even if it wasn't Aaron Rodgers, we would still need a veteran quarterback to play this year one way or the other. I know we've got Will Howard, 6th-round pick. They like him, but he's a 6th-round pick. It's going to take time, and there's a better chance he doesn't pan out, of course, than he does. Drafted Drew Aller this year. I think they're taking some swings, and so I'm excited to see those guys battle behind the scenes and see who steps up to be the QB2 and sort of learn. And one of those guys most likely is going to take over next year. But as far as the other positions, I mean, on defense, we don't have a lot of other options. Our main aged guys, I think TJ's starting to obviously decline in production, but he's TJ Watt, right? He's got to hold down the fort still. Still got some years left of good play out of him. Cam Hayward, kind of an ageless wonder. He had a really good year last year still. And so I think those guys still provide value, especially in the locker room on bringing up the rookies and getting them up to speed and everything like that. But it definitely holds you back. I mean, we don't have, especially at quarterback. I mean, with veteran quarterbacks, it's kind of rare to go on deep runs in the playoffs and things like that. But I think they're moving in the right direction, over the next few years. We just got to land that next quarterback.
Yeah, and then I'm sorry, Matthew. Before I pass this on to you, I have one more question for you. So I've joked with you for several years now that the Steelers' trajectory is very similar, in my opinion, to what the Broncos' trajectory were on after Peyton Manning retired. When we're talking about cycling through quarterbacks, you haven't nearly cycled through as many, but you're kind of going through the aches and pains of trying to find the guy, bringing in veterans while also going through rookies such as Kenny Pickett. I mean, the Broncos went through guys like Drew Lock and Joe Flacco and Russell Wilson, Teddy Bridgewater, all those types of guys. So what makes the Pittsburgh Steelers different? And what's going to get them through the aches and pains of missing out on a star-studded young quarterback like you guys are right now?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we are different in terms of how we're evaluating quarterbacks. We haven't been able to hit one yet. And so until we prove that we can do that, right, that's always going to be a pain point. But I think one thing that they are doing a good job at is still improving the rest of the roster so that when we do land a quarterback, it's not a brand new situation that they have to rebuild for 4 years, for the entire rookie contract of that quarterback.
Yeah.
Look at, we still have youth, especially at weapons that'll be around. There's going to be guys stepping up on the defensive side. So as a fan, I'm happy we're still able to remain competitive in these rebuild years, if you will, without a quarterback. But just knowing that, you can't compete for a Super Bowl with that obviously is frustrating.
Sure.
Yeah, so there were two things. I like that you put with the aging roster that your ceiling isn't as high. It definitely limits your ceiling because you start losing the argument of breakout candidates and breakout players because they're past that point of their breakout in their career. So I agree. When I look at the Steelers as a whole, I do think they are capped on what they can achieve. Are they still a relevant team? Can they still be competitive and be a tough team to play against? I think so. But I have a hard time buying into like hype for the season when they're so limited on what their ceiling is as a whole. When you talk about McCarthy and his coaching staff, I'm just curious from an outside perspective, what did you guys replace? Do you have a new OC? Do you have a new DC? Are they all new? Where did these guys come from? What's different on this coaching staff? Did you guys completely clean slate, like the whole staff, or who was retained in that, and who did McCarthy bring in, either on the offensive or defensive side of the ball that you're excited about?
Yeah, so pretty much a full clean house. I think we retained 1 or 2 positional coach assistants that were on Tomlin's staff. Other than that, completely Mike McCarthy's new staff. So the biggest ones, Patrick Graham's going to be our defensive coordinator. He's been in the NFL a long time at various roles. He was with the Raiders last season, most recently, but he runs a lot of the schemes that I think will hopefully allow our defense to have a little bit of a step up, especially a guy like TJ Watt, putting him in better positions and moving him around, being less predictable on that front. We got Angelico, who from the Minnesota Vikings, who he has worked with Minnesota's coaching staff for the last several years, specifically on quarterback and wide receiver development. And so, I think we saw a lot of that, how Minnesota runs their offense and more spreading with the wide receivers. And obviously they've got great wide receiver talent to work with. But even in the kind of the influx of in-between quarterbacks that Minnesota's been in, they've been able to produce, pretty good production as well. And so I'm excited what he's going to bring to the table from that. McCarthy's going to be calling the plays. He has for all of his career, I believe.
Yeah.
But having that offensive coordinator to really work behind the scenes, and really what we've struggled on with the most is play design. We're very vanilla, and yes, our roster somewhat requires that, right? Aaron Rodgers isn't what he used to be. So a lot of the short passes involving running backs, screens, and stuff like that is going to be common. But I'm looking forward to getting a little bit more creative and being able to utilize, the weapons that we now have. So other than that, but he brought in position coaches at every single position on both sides of the ball, which we haven't had. It's literally, I think we have 8 more coaches on staff this coming seasons than we had in any of Mike Tomlin's years. Dog is going crazy. Yeah.
Well, we do have another guest on this podcast. It is a very cute
Shiloh
dog
Sanders.
named Shiloh.
Tyler's dog. You could just prop it open so that she can come and go as needed in case she. Well, anyways.
Yeah. So I guess my question, my last one here for you. So when you look ahead to the 2027 draft class, it's pretty star-studded, especially at the quarterback position. So as a fan of the Steelers, knowing that this is the last year you have of Aaron Rodgers, and knowing that you have such a huge question mark at the most important position in sports, how do you feel about kind of running it back with the roster that you had? And especially, going forward with Aaron Rodgers, where you could say that he'll get you between 7 and 10 wins this year, knowing that maybe it would have been in your best interest as the Pittsburgh Steelers to go forward, maybe suck for 1 year, and then be able to draft your franchise guy in this 2027 draft class.
Yeah, it's a big debate, right? The tank versus not tank. And obviously, when you remain competitive and be even in wild card discussion, you're taking yourself out of premier draft picks, right?
Yeah.
And that's, so on one hand, yes, I'd love to be able to pick in the top 10, especially when you have an upcoming class with a whole lot of talent that we could find our guy in. On the other hand, it's like, even having a top 10 pick surely doesn't guarantee you anything.
Sure.
Right. And so there's a whole lot, of more pressure that comes with quarterbacks taken in high picks like that in the top 10. And more of them ended up not panning out than do. Right. So on the other hand, it's like, yeah, if we had a top 10 pick, but then we draft the wrong guy, then we're back in the same problem. And so I think where they're at, they're making improvements on both sides of the ball in other areas. I don't mind having another veteran, and if it's going to be anybody, I think it's a right fit to remain with Rodgers in another year, especially with Mike McCarthy coming in with their history. They're going to be working with a lot of things they're both familiar with. Like I said, it does limit our ceiling, to a degree there. But we also have, some of those aging players. It's like, okay, are you going to fully rebuild? But then it's like you got guys like TJ, Cam Hayward, right, at the tail end of, back end of their career. So they're in this in between on like, hey, we've got to do everything we can to try to win something while we have those guys before we move forward.
Yeah, but isn't the goal to win a Super Bowl every year?
Of course.
That's the goal, right? There's really a handful of teams that can legitimately say that they're in that running. But kind of my thought process is if you have to kind of be real with yourself. And if you don't consider yourself one of those top 5 premier teams that actually has a chance at winning a Super Bowl, wouldn't you rather just suck until you find that guy? Because, kind of being in that middle ground territory of drafting, between 15 and 22 every year, that's, I feel like, kind of the worst position to be in the NFL.
I would agree. And again, I'm like 50-50 on this, right? On I go back and forth on kind of what I'd like to see from a fan's perspective. I think that the way that they are building this team over the last, call it 4 years in the draft in other positions, I think is setting themselves up to be more of a, not that we're only a QB away, because we're not, right? There's other holes, but we're certainly a foundation that a QB can step into and speed up that, how fast, once we get that QB in place, can we actually compete for a Super Bowl? I look at teams like the Tennessee Titans, all right, and getting Cam Ward. All right. I think he's got a high potential, obviously, can be the guy for a very long time. They don't have a whole lot else. So how long of his rookie career or rookie contract in those first 4 years are they going to be spending, being a 5-win team, 6-win team, just rebuilding the other pieces? So
makes sense.
Yeah.
Just like we're going to have you give some outside perspective on the AFC West and our respective teams, some things with the Steelers, from the outside looking in, I like that you guys recuperated some weapons for Aaron Rodgers. The goal is when you have a quarterback like him at this stage of his career, you want to make it as easy as possible, right? With McCarthy, with the weapons, with the system, with the protection, with the run game, you want to make his job as easy as possible because it's not fair to ask as much as you can ask out of a 41-year-old dude or however old he is. So I like what you did there. Some concerns I have about the Steelers, your inside linebackers last year, very bad against the run. You guys ranked 27th in run stop win rate last year. Patrick Queen probably had the worst year of his career last year. Pretty bad in coverage. He ranked 61st out of 68 qualified linebackers on PFF, led the league in a missed tackle rate of 32 missed tackles. I have concerns about that as your inside linebacker core. I think it's Peyton Wilson is your other one. And he's going into his third year, so you're really hoping he can make a jump in that third year of his contract. And with that, like your team as a whole, when I look at the Steelers and the strengths, I think your cornerback room, bringing in Jamal Dean to pair with Joey Porter Jr. is awesome. That's a really, really good duo you guys have there. Your pass rush, even with TJ's numbers declining and his overall play declining, he's still highly effective. And you have Nick Herbig, Alex Highsmith. So you guys have good stuff there. Your inside D-line has always been good. As long as you've been a fan of the Steelers, they've always had a good D-line. It's just something that's consistent with them. But I'm concerned about about your linebacker core as a whole, your safety group's durability. It's Brisker and Elliott, who both have injury concerns and some inconsistent play back there. And then you're really going to need that third receiver out. So you better hope Pittman can at least still be productive, which even last year with the Colts, he's still putting up between 700, 800 yards, which is good for a wide receiver too. But you're going to need some effective play there. You guys, even with who was it? You guys had Jalen Warren and Gainwell, right? Even with what they did last year, your offense ranked 26th in the league in yards per game rushing, 22nd in yards per game passing, 15th total, and then 25th in yards allowed. So, like you said, there's even looking outside of Aaron Rodgers, there are some holes on this roster to fill. And I like Rico Dowdle, but you're hoping you can make a big jump from 25th in the league with Rico Dowdle to higher. And Jeremy Bernard's going to have to produce. You have a good tight end room, and then your offensive line as a whole still needs to be ironed out. So I still think there's enough holes on this team without just focusing on Aaron Rodgers that's why I have a hard time buying a high ceiling from the Steelers. I think they can be competitive for wild card, and we'll get to that later in this episode when we talk about it. But there's just too much there for me to not feel confident about. So I guess I'll open that up to you on how you feel about that. Are you pleased with some additions that they've had? What are you displeased about? What are you worried about with this team? And how does that look at going into training camp before we jump into the AFC West?
Damn, dude, you just shit on the Steelers like crazy there.
Hey.
Holy cow.
No, I'll keep this quick. So I completely agree, actually, in terms of the position groups that you mentioned. I think my biggest worry would be inside linebacker as well. I think Patrick Queen has not lived up to what we acquired him to be. When he started in Baltimore, I was super excited about that acquisition. I mean, he was looking like he was going to be a premier linebacker. He just hasn't been, especially in coverage. He's slower. I think he does some things well. I'd like to see him bounce back, but it's hard to bank on that, especially after watching him last season. Peyton Wilson, I love that guy. I think he's got electric speed. He hasn't put it all together yet. I'd like to see him start to take over more of the premier inside linebacker position over Queen as we move forward. Peyton Wilson, I believe, was he Wisconsin?
I have no clue.
I'll have to double check on that.
I can look it up.
All right. But, I think where we have to win on defense roster-wise is up front, which has been the Steelers for a long time, with our pass rush, interior, defensive line, supposed to be the strength. It stepped back last year in production. I'm hoping with the scheme changes and moving guys around and being able to move TJ on both sides of the ball is going to increase production there.
NC State.
NC State, wow. Coming from the low guys. But I actually am really happy and excited to see the secondary this season. You mentioned Dean, bringing him on, pairing with Joey Porter. He had a really good season in Tampa last year. He's a veteran, but I think that's going to
still young
some
though.
Stability. Yeah, I think he's 29 or 30.
Yeah, he's not that old.
Right, but and then I think we re-signed Asante Samuel. I'm interested to see if he can stay healthy. And that's your old guy. Now he's with the good guys, but. We drafted a guy named Everett out of Georgia in this draft class, and supposedly he's been making noise in camp so far. He might be able to be the QB CB3, if you will, CB4. And then at the safety end, if he can stay healthy, I like Brisker's game a lot. And I think Ramsey is obviously on the tail end, but if Brisker can take the load off of Ramsey to be the full-time guy, then we can move Ramsey around in certain packages where it makes sense. And on offense, the weapons got to show up, obviously, like you mentioned.
Yeah. Talking about the draft, what's up with your first-round pick?
Max?
Yeah, what is he up to? Is he going to, play at all?
So he is a wild story. I didn't know anything about him when we drafted him.
Yeah.
He played for Arizona State. Yeah,
In Hetchador
or something? I think, or something like that. Yeah.
We'll call him Max
He just
for now.
started. He took up football 3 years ago.
Okay.
He's from overseas. He did not play football, just learning the game and kind of his technique. He got a lot of rave from the scouts. That's what got him to Arizona State and played starter minutes over there. And he's a project from that standpoint. Got to work on a lot of different technique and stuff like that, especially with his footwork. Got tremendous size, and I definitely don't anticipate him getting into the lineup this season, barring injury. I think we're going to move Fatanu over to left tackle while Broderick is recovering, and we'll see what happens with him. And then Dylan Cook, who played left tackle for us last season when Broderick went down, is going to move to right tackle. And he had a pretty good season. He's not a star by any means, but I think he's going to hold it down on the right side while Max sort of develops.
Sweet. All right. Well, and Matthew, unless you have anything else as far as Steelers go here, I'm Steelered out right now. I can't talk about
I'm
it.
good on the Steelers perspective. Before we jump into the rankings and some of our other topics for today's episode, I'd like to hear an outside AFC West perspective from Ryan, being a fan in the North. Everybody that's listened knows how Nick and I feel about the West this year and what we're excited about. We talk about it all the time. But from somebody that's not in the AFC West as a fan, but certainly pays attention to it and is surrounded by it, I'd like to hear your thoughts on the outlook of the entire AFC West and some things that you have in mind going into this year for our division.
And please be realistic here.
You got it. You got it.
God, for the love of God. Ryan and Matthew hate the Broncos more than anything in life. But please just be realistic here.
You got it. All right, I would say the AFC West, the hype that this division got.
Yeah. That is true. So Ryan is more of a Chiefs fan than he is a Steelers fan.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Not true.
You should see his bedroom. There's posters of Patrick Mahomes all over the place. Yeah.
Oh my God. All right, so I would say a few years ago, roughly, right, the AFC West started to get a lot of hype around the depth of the division and what it could be, right? Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes. Now we got Bo Nix in the fold in Denver. The Raiders obviously are the Raiders, but they just got Fernando Mendoza. They're at least putting pieces in together. Maybe they join the party in a few years. We'll see. But I think starting last year, but going forward, I think we're going to start to see that actually come to fruition. Because in the beginning of that, it's like some of those teams just didn't hold up their end of the hype, if you will. Mm-hmm. Now you've got really 3 playoff caliber teams in the Chiefs, Chargers, and Broncos. The Raiders are the rebuilding team of the group. Like I said, we'll see in a few years based on how Mendoza kind of comes into fruition there. But I think it's exciting. I think they're all tough. The Chiefs obviously had a big setback last year, so that all eyes are going to be on them on how they recover from that and what they bring into this season. But when you look at last season, the Chargers, right, they're putting it together. They're adding to the coaching staff. I know Matthew's psyched about Mike McDaniel coming over as an offensive coordinator and what he can bring there. And the Broncos, starting with defense, obviously super tough, really laid the foundation. And then they were able to put the pieces together throughout the season last year on offense. So we'll see how that carries forward. But, I think you have to look at it like you've got 3 playoff teams, right, which is what my division has been in the past. And we've kind of gotten weaker, and yours has gotten stronger. And so I think ultra-competitive division for sure. It's going to be exciting to see how it pans out in the standings. And then you look at additions. Kenneth Walker going to the Chiefs. You mentioned you signing Njoku to the tight end room with the Chargers. The draft class is coming in. Jalen Waddle coming in at wide receiver in Denver. So a lot of exciting news coming in your division this year.
Yeah. Who do you think has the best constructed roster in the AFC West?
You're going to like this. I would say balanced. Balanced roster is important on both sides of the ball. I've got to give that to Denver. I think that especially on defense, just top to bottom, the back end with the secondary holding down with Surtain and more additions that you're adding on the secondary as well. Linebacker, I think, is your hit or miss spot on the defense, but your pass rush really has put it together, and they're a super tough defense to play against, especially at home. You guys got the home field advantage and everything with that. And you've been able to, as Bo Nix kind of holding down the quarterback position, now you're adding Jalen Waddle to the mix at wide receiver. I think it's going to give you more options on that front. You got a handful of running backs that, are kind of, we'll see, but they all have high potential, especially if Dobbins can stay healthy. So I'd say balanced roster. Got to give it to Denver top to bottom right now.
Perfect. All right, so we're going to end this podcast now. That's all I needed to hear from Ryan. That was awesome. Thank you. He looks a little green right now. He doesn't look very good. So,
yeah, from the closet Chiefs fan, I'd like to hear. Well, one, I like that you said it's starting to come to fruition with other teams starting to actually compete for the Chiefs. I do think, And I think we all can probably agree that the days of penciling in the Chiefs as the easy winner every single year are over. Now, that's not to say that they can't go out and do it and that it's impossible and won't happen again, but I think their days of just completely dominating the West or the AFC as a whole are behind us. Can they still be a competitive team? Can they still be a playoff team or even a potential division winner? Yeah, maybe, but I don't think that they're the sure thing anymore. So with that being said, how do you look at the Chiefs roster right now, and what are your concerns with them? Do you still, if you had to take this right now, we did a DraftKings peek last week on our episode of betting odds for a division winner. Chiefs are first right now, not by much. Chargers are second, and then the Broncos were third. If you had to guess, do you still think the Chiefs are the team to beat, if you will, or are going to be the division winner or should be the division winner? And what are your concerns with that? Do you have any concerns about Mahomes coming back from this injury and how his deep ball looked last year and stuff like that?
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about when we get to the standings on kind of where they fall. I think that I do expect the Chiefs to bounce back. To your point, I don't think that, it's a runaway by any means anymore, right? And that's the biggest thing, right? It's not a surefire penciled-in thing. Sorry, is that not close enough?
Yeah. Talking to the mic, Ryan. God damn it.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Not penciled in whatsoever. Broncos, Chargers, both heavily in the mix for that division. I do expect the Chiefs to bounce back. I do expect the Chiefs to be in the playoffs this season. We'll talk about when we talk about the standings on specifically where I think they will fall when it comes to that. Their roster is interesting. It's definitely not the best roster. I think when you have Mahomes, right, and you have Andy Reid, Travis Kelce's not the same anymore. I know he's coming back. That's not what it used to be, obviously. Their wide receiver room is more. They spend more time in jail, it seems, than they spend on the football field right now. But so we'll kind of see about that. They've got a couple of rookies they're going to be relying on defense this year to fill some holes there. Mm-hmm. And then you still got Chris Jones, tail end of his career. He's got to be able to hold it down for, at least the time being, for sure on that front. But I definitely agree. I don't think they are what they were. I do think probably more than both of you, as far as their chances, I think are better to return to contention than they have been. Of course, last year was horrible. Mahomes, I am concerned a little bit about the injury. Sounds like his rehab's going okay, and he could even start the regular season game one, the home opener or the game opener, to start the season. Whether he does or not, we'll see. He's got to stay healthy, obviously. Of any team starting quarterback is sort of the catalyst of how far they can go, but especially when you've got an elite quarterback, completely can change the complexion of the season. So I do agree they have a whole lot more question marks than answers right now compared to what they used to be.
Yeah, no, I think all of those are good points. And if you've been listening, that's my biggest thing with the Chiefs is I understand the Mahomes and the Andy Reid pairing and the historical analysis of their last, decade that they've put together and the dynasty that they put together. And I'm not going to take away from that. The thing that frustrates me the most is using that as just the sole argument of why the Chiefs are still the best or why the Chiefs will win the West or why the Chiefs are the team to beat. It frustrates me that every argument just goes back to it's Mahomes and Reid, because I think at some point in time, and I think that time is coming now, where that argument doesn't hold as much weight as it did 3 to 5 years ago or even a couple years ago. I don't take that for granted or discredit that argument because there's some validity there. I just think there's still so many question marks on that roster or holes on that team that need to be fixed. And with age, things aren't going to be the same. And I just don't like using that same argument for the Chiefs. I still think they're competitive, but I'm glad to hear that you also agree that there are still some question marks on that roster that need to be ironed out in order to place them in that contention status against some of the other teams that we have in the AFC and in the West specifically.
I just think that we're heading into a territory of we're really going to find out what Patrick Mahomes' legacy actually is going to be. Because when you look at the greatest quarterbacks of all time, we're talking about Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, John Elway, Joe Montana, like all these guys, they were able to elevate the entire team simply by their play. So if Patrick Mahomes is really a top 5 guy of all time that we think that he can be, and he was certainly on that trajectory, what is that Chiefs team going to be when the team around him isn't all that good? And we saw what it was last year where the team wasn't nearly as good and they struggled. Yes, there was injuries involved, especially with Patrick Mahomes. But if Patrick Mahomes is really that greatest of all time category quarterback, I feel like these next few years are really going to decide what his legacy are.
No, I totally agree. I think this year in general for the Kansas City Chiefs as a team is the telling year, right? I mean, I think, I don't want to overreact or underreact to one season, but
Sure.
this year will be able to tell, right? Hey, are they done? Are they, out of the mix, right? Mm-hmm. If that happens 2 years in a row, then I think that tells you a lot about where this division is going. Whether that maybe Denver becomes the team to beat in that division. The Chargers can step up and be that team to beat in the division. I think right now I'm going in personally in this season, I think, and I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I think those teams probably think the same. Like, hey, you can't automatically, assume they're just going to be out of the mix every year now. I think starting for this year, I think they are still at least one of the top 2 teams to beat in the division until proven otherwise. But this year's going to tell a lot, and I agree on legacy too. I think he's had obviously a ridiculous start to his career between awards, wins, Super Bowls, and everything, putting him at a place in history. How high that goes certainly depends on how he takes this, the rest of the way. And as their roster, and like you mentioned, they're going to have years where the roster isn't as dominant as it was in some of those Super Bowl winning teams. So he's got to absolutely show up, stay healthy for one, and elevate the team and see if they can get back to contention.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point going into the next 5 years of this contract he just signed and how that's going to impact his legacy. I do want to point out when we talk about last year, though, and we talk about the injuries, let's not ignore the fact that he didn't get injured till week 15. No. Okay, so the majority of that entire season, he was active for and he was healthy. He was healthy for 15 weeks before, he missed 2.5, maybe 3 games, I think is what it ended up being. So the struggles, did he get injured at the end of the year that fucked a lot of things? Absolutely. But the injuries wasn't the caveat for the season. The season was a failure way before Patrick Mahomes got hurt, and that has to be noted. And even Mahomes has spoke about this himself. We didn't see the best version of him. There were a lot of uncharacteristic interceptions that you don't see from Pat Mahomes, especially in the red zone, especially his third down efficiency. His deep ball was the worst it's been. His QB grade was the worst of his career. And these were all pre-injury things that he didn't have a lingering injury up until week 15 that just finally blew. He was healthy for the duration of that year until that ACL, MCL, whatever it was, injury in week 15. So I think that's something that has to be talked about, that we can't just use the injury's sake to identify that there were some concerning things from the Chiefs as a whole, but there were also some concerning things from Mahomes that we saw pre-injury that he was healthy for. And I'm not saying that's going to be him for the rest of his career, and I do expect him to bounce back, actually. I think he'll be just fine. But I want to put that on record. It needs to be noted that there were things prior to that injury that were concerning with Mahomes, and that's something that he's going to have to answer for as he comes back.
No, good point. I definitely do not put injuries, especially Mahomes' injury, as the reason for last season for the Chiefs. I think a lot of things did snowball, but they were dysfunctional on both sides of the ball throughout really the entire season, which was very uncharacteristic, which is why I say this is kind of a make or break type of year for that team, is where we're going to see, hey, did they have a 1 year slip up, or are they truly just a different team that's going to take some time to see if they can ever get back to that status? But it'd be interesting.
All right. We've talked way too much Steelers and way too much Chiefs today. We're gonna get into the meat and bones of this podcast. You're okay with that, Matthew? Yes.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Well, you got a problem with meat and bones or what?
I think it's meat and potatoes.
Meat and potatoes.
I think that's what the saying is. But yeah.
Sorry. This.
We'll go with that.
Perfect. All right. So the executives, scouts, and coaches across the league, they all did their... Holy cow. They all did their rankings of each position group in the NFL. They did their top 10 rankings for each position, and then they did some honorable mentions. And then we also have some players that here in the AFC West that received some votes but didn't make the list. So we are going to start this one off with the most important position in sports, the quarterback position. Now, before we get into this, Matthew, you put this list together for us, so you kind of saw what was going on. Mm-hmm. Did Patrick Mahomes not make this list?
He was number one.
Oh, he was number one.
No. Josh Allen was one. Yeah.
So he was number
Mahomes
two.
was two. Yeah.
Okay, number two. So that's to be expected. I mean, we all think that Patrick Mahomes is still great. I think that he is one of the top 3 quarterbacks in this league. But Justin Herbert came in at number 7. So, Matthew, I'm going to give you an opportunity here to defend this. Why should he be at number 7? And his lack of winning, why does that not play a factor into this?
So I'm going to go out on a limb. He does not belong at number 7. He belongs at number 5.
Holy
Move
cow.
Justin Herbert up these lists. God damn it. This is expected. I think when we look at the quarterback position that Mahomes and Herbert were going to be on there. Certainly Aaron Rodgers in his wheelchair is not going to make the list. And then Bo Nix coming in at 18. You can touch on that. Even as a Bo Nix hater, that was disrespectful. But Herbert being at 7, I'm glad he made this list. I think when you look at this list, it's compiled not from fan votes and not from analysts. It's put together from people that hold a lot of weight in the league and certainly have some form of expertise. The game recognizes Herbert's skill set, and I think that alone is going to go very far to keep him in this list. I think even if the Chargers lose another playoff game or however the season plays out, you're going to see him again in the top 10 because the league recognizes elite talent when they see it. And I don't think any of the 3 of us will disagree that Herbert possesses elite talent. His physical traits, his ability to run the ball, his size, his arm, his accuracy. There's some parts of his game that they document in this list on why he's number 7 that he does need to improve. So he's not perfect.
Can I stop you real quick?
Sure.
So I feel like this is a good time to stop you because you're getting on a roll. And I do disagree. I disagree.
He has elite talent.
So he does, but at what point are we going to look at his elite talent and recognize that he hasn't hit 4,000 yards in 3 years, hasn't won shit in his entire career, and still allow this guy to be one of the premier quarterbacks in terms of rankings in the NFL?
Yeah, you look at the guys behind him, what have they won? Or even the guys before him. Dak Prescott has not been more successful than Justin Herbert, and he's number 6 on this list, right? Lamar Jackson has never won a Super Bowl. Has he had some more playoff success? Yeah, absolutely. Joe Burrow, outside of his one Super Bowl appearance, what has Joe Burrow accomplished, right? And I'm not saying he's better than Joe Burrow because I don't think he is, but when you look at the grand scheme of things, not everybody's going to win. Okay, and I don't think putting just the winning and accomplishments on one singular player who's in the era of a Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, who are clearly better quarterbacks, not going to argue that, he's not going to win an MVP over Mahomes or Josh Allen because he's not as good as those guys, right? And there's only going to be one Super Bowl winner. There's only going to be one MVP. There's only going to be a couple 4,000-yard passers per season, and this is where every single Justin Herbert argument goes, is context. Everyone loves saying he's the if quarterback, but it has to be mentioned, the circumstances at play, right? You talk about not hitting 4,000 yards in the last 3 years. Well, look at our running back carries. Look at his offensive coordinator. Look at his offensive line. Look at how the offense was schemed. He wasn't passing the ball nearly enough, and nor did he have the weapons, nor did he have an offensive coordinator, nor did he have the protection. We had the worst offensive line in football probably in the last decade last year. That's not going to give a quarterback a fair shot, yet he still performed. Okay?
So I guess my argument again here is, we look at the greatest of all time conversation when it comes to quarterbacks, and I don't think you're putting him in that conversation.
No, certainly not.
But when we're looking at the premier quarterbacks of the league throughout history, if you are that guy, you raise the tides for the team.
Which I believe he's done, though. Like, we're back-to-back 11-win seasons, and you can look at our team and say, there's no way the Chargers should have been an 11-win team playing in that game.
But I would also
with that
say
offensive line, with that injury-riddled group, with that roster, like Jim Harbaugh, Justin Herbert, and Jesse Minter raised the floor of the Chargers to get to back-to-back 11-win seasons, which the Chargers haven't completed that in nearly 20 years.
Sure, but I would also say that if you have your franchise guy, no matter what the situation is, you should never be in a position where you're picking at number 5 or 6 that it was when you guys got Joe Alt. You should never be in a position where you were drafting number 7 when you got Quentin Johnston, or who was it?
Quentin Johnston, we got at 21.
Who was the top 7 guy that you got?
Mike Williams?
Yeah, Mike Williams.
We got Mike before Justin Herbert.
Well, anyways, but you should never be in a position,
right? Which we only were one time.
Sure.
One time.
But I just feel like
he's put together winning seasons. He's
point,
made the playoffs 3 of his. This is his 6th year in the league.
Yeah.
When you land, Justin Herbert was drafted at 5th overall. 6th, because Tua went right before.
Yeah, 6th.
When you're picking in the top 6, your team is bad and you need help.
Correct.
And a quarterback is not fixing that. But he has raised the floor significantly for our team with his breakout and how he's progressed in this league. And when we look at this, we're not saying these are the best quarterbacks in the history of football or that these are, surefire MVP guys. This is the top 10 players at that position. And look at outside of Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Matt Stafford, Lamar Jackson's in the same conversation as Justin Herbert. So is Jared Goff. So is Dak Prescott. So is Caleb Williams. So is Jordan Love. So is all of these guys that are rounding out this list are in the same conversation. So what have they accomplished, right? So he belongs. He absolutely belongs. It's just where in that pecking order does he belong? And I think you're going to see him rise even higher than number 7 after this year, assuming we stay healthy.
Yeah, I just we'll let you get in this, Ryan, but it just frustrates me that we have guys on these lists where it's just we're talking about pure talent. And then, of course, I'm going to bring it back to Bo Nix, where he's at 18 on this list, which is diabolical to me, where, sure, he may not be the most talented guy, but he has outperformed Justin Herbert statistically and accomplishment-wise in the last 2 seasons, yet there's this huge discrepancy in rankings when we're talking 7 to 18. Now, am I saying that Bo Nix is as talented as Justin Herbert? Of course not.
Right.
I've been on record saying that Justin Herbert's one of the top probably 5 quarterbacks in the NFL if we're talking purely talent. But there is so much more nuance that goes into this as far as what the NFL actually needs for a quarterback to be successful.
Yeah. No, and that is a good point. But when we're looking at what is creating these lists, right? These are individual player rankings. And you could take all 32 GMs in the league, and all of them are going to pick Justin Herbert to be their starter over a guy like Bo Nix or Jordan Love or Jared Goff or Caleb Williams, for that matter, or somebody within that bubble range, right? And I agree. Does it only go off talent? No. But is it also fair to put in just overall team success and playoff wins and stuff like that? That's not fair either for a team made up of 53 players to put that on one player at the same time, right?
Yeah.
And hold on, I was going somewhere with that. So with Justin Herbert making this, it's just it's a combination of what he's done in the league, what his talent is, his physical traits, his IQ, and yes, he does have a lot of areas of his game that he needs to improve, but he can't be denied in this list. And talent-wise, if he's a top 5 player, you even look at he's lost 3 playoff games. What, one of them was his fault? One? Like, he played bad the Texans game, but even the Texans game, you have to look at some context of that game and actually watch what that guy went through. The Jaguars loss, he didn't play bad at all. He actually had a really solid game, that Jaguars game. He didn't play bad. His defense didn't make one single stop in the whole second half of that game. Not one.
At the end of the game, they were in position to win the game, though.
I would argue he did enough to put his team in position to win that game, and they didn't hold their end of their bargain.
Bo Nix would have won.
And when you're playing with the 32nd ranked offensive line, I don't think we can underestimate how hard that makes the quarterback position. When you have no time to throw, you have incompetent coaching with Greg Roman and Joe Lombardi, and he's cycled through. He's on his 5th offensive coordinator in 6 years. That's
a big problem.
That's not good to do to a player. That is not fair.
What I will say about the offensive line is that, so when we're tying this back to the situation that we have here in Denver, yes, I will say that the Broncos have the best offensive line in the NFL. But with that being said, if you truly watch Bronco games, I think that the Broncos offensive line is the best offensive line in the NFL because of Bo Nix. When you look at what Russell Wilson was in this offense with the same offensive line, he got sacked significantly more, but the way that Bo Nix plays the game makes our offensive line better. So that ties back to my initial point of the quarterback raises tides for the entire team and puts them in positions to be successful. And again, this is probably me just being pissed off that Bo Nix is at 18 on this list, but I think that there is that untangible factor to this where you can't see it, you just know it, and Bo Nix has it, whereas I don't think Justin Herbert has it.
All right, these are good points. I'm going to give you an outside perspective. None of these guys are on my team, and Aaron Rodgers certainly didn't make this list. But I don't have a problem where Herbert is at on this list. For a lot of the points Matthew made, one, I mean, these lists are always going to be subjective, which we love because it creates debate and topics and all of that. But I think that, on one hand, Justin Herbert, phenomenally talented. Everyone knows that, like you guys have pointed out. He's got to put something more together. He's got to. In fact, I would say, and I'll ask Matthew what he thinks, like, this year has got to be when that starts. I mean, like, the coaching staff is there. I completely agree on the context in general, and everyone has some sort of context, right? There's injuries, there's coaching staffs, there's opponents, right, and game situations. Justin Herbert realistically should have a playoff win by now. I know we can look at game by game. He should have won this one or shouldn't have won this one. He should have a playoff win. But I think in his defense, if you're looking at, you're bringing winning into it. I mean, outside of Patrick Mahomes and Matt Stafford at this point, no one that's at that level of play of, like, you're an elite quarterback, you've won a Super Bowl. There really isn't any. And so then it becomes, okay, now we're shuffling these guys that are clearly elite franchise quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. You get Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, you got Herbert. There's several, and the list is growing. There's a lot of great talent coming into the league. They haven't all put it together either. And so then it's like, okay, yes, ranking a guy as high as number 3, if you take, let's say, Stafford and Mahomes out of the picture, that's high, and they don't have a win to back it up. Yes, those guys have some wild card wins. Josh Allen's picked up a few wins. Joe Burrow went to the Super Bowl once, lost, thankfully. But to Herbert's defense, those guys are probably, most could say, are probably better quarterbacks than Justin Herbert and had better teams that can win a Super Bowl in those years that they've fallen short. So I put more of the losing sort of, critique, if you will, on those guys a little bit more. But Justin Herbert, if you're going to be in that discussion, we've got to put some stuff together. You got to win a playoff game.
Yeah, good point. And I would argue last year's team had no business being an 11-win team with how that roster shook out, with the incompetent coaching, with having one starter left on your entire offensive line at some points. The Chargers should not have been an 11-win team. And did they get exposed in the playoffs against Houston in 2024 and against New England? Absolutely, as they should have, because they were not, and this is coming from a Chargers fan, we were not that good of a team that should have been there. We just had enough pieces to raise the floor to get us there, and that starts with Jim Harbaugh. And I said when we got Jim that by year 3, you need to see success. And I'm as big of a Jim Harbaugh believer and fan as anybody out there. You guys know this. But if we don't put together success this season, and I'm not talking a 10 or 11 win season with a first-round bump, then Jim Harbaugh's era is becoming a failure. It is. And that's coming from one of the biggest Jim Harbaugh fans out there. This is year 3 where he has had his fingerprints all over our team. I don't expect it in year 1 or 2 because that takes a lot of time for him to mold the culture that he wants, for him to get the staff that he wants, for him to get his blueprint on the draft classes. We've had a change in GMs. We've had a change in DC now. We've had several changes at OC, right? This is the year we do need to see that success. And if not, I think it is a failure. I do.
So my rebuttal to that is, and I hate to tie this back to the Broncos because I feel like for the people that are listening, it might be a little annoying, and I understand that. But I would say that the Broncos and Chargers kind of went through very similar situations as far as bringing in a new head coach of
highly sought after,
highly sought after coach.
Yeah,
and they both have younger quarterbacks that are considered to be or I guess not Bo Nix, but have good talent. And you've seen what Sean Payton has been able to do with this roster in 3 seasons. Mm-hmm. He took this roster from a bottom-dwelling roster that was just pitiful, picking in the top 10 consistently, to changing the culture around completely, making the playoffs the last 2 years, once with a rookie quarterback that got demolished in a wild card game. But then in that second year, won 14 games and made it to an AFC championship game, and honestly was an injury away from making it to a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. So I think that Jim Harbaugh has done his job. He has turned around an organization that didn't really have a culture in place.
Yeah.
You guys have made it to the playoffs in back-to-back years.
Right.
And you're there now.
Yeah.
At what point do we say that Jim Harbaugh has done his job, but maybe Justin Herbert isn't holding up his end of the bargain?
Yeah, and there's certainly some blame there. Herbert has not played his best football when it counts. And that's just a fact. I think when Harbaugh came in, has he done his job? 100%. He absolutely has. But with that being said, we had to backtrack the Tom Telesco era in order to even get to this year 3 spot where we are with Joe Ortiz, Mike McDaniel, and Chris O'Leary. We had to backtrack 2 years to essentially recover from the position Tom Telesco put our team in. With the pending free agents, we were $20 million over the cap. We were a 5-win team, and our roster was in fucking shambles. I mean, recovering from that takes more than 1 season. It does. It takes time. And we've recovered from that. And I think now we're seeing that transition. Now, our recovery wasn't like other teams where you're recovering and you're on that cusp of the Steelers, right? Where you're competitive enough to be in conversations, but you're not really there. And we all know it. And the Chargers, back-to-back 11-win seasons, they shouldn't have had those. That's because of Jim Harbaugh, Justin Herbert, Jesse Minter, the leaders on that team, and what Joe Ortiz has done in his two times as GM. But recovering from the Tom Telesco era and getting us to the position we're in now, I think now is the time you have to see that results to give him that fair shot. But unless you have anything to add on this, we can keep going because we have a little bit more we got to get to.
No, that's a good point. I mean, I think all teams, right? You have that thing where you got to get over the hump, and to Nick's point, Harbaugh's got you guys turned around. You have the culture in place. Your roster has improved, right, on both sides of the ball, and now Herbert's he's got to take it. When I look at those teams, it's like who's contending for wild card spots, and how many of them have a franchise quarterback? Mm-hmm. And it's like when you got that franchise quarterback, there's expectations that get elevated with that. It can take some time, for some, but you got to get there. I think Chargers are sort of next in line of having that guy, but not having the results from that guy yet, and they got to get over the hump.
No. All right, so we're gonna move on from this. I think the rest we won't spend nearly as much time on until we get to tackles, because that one is a little iffy too. But we'll stay on the offensive side of the ball here. We're gonna move. So with that being said, we're just talking about AFC West players here
And Steelers.
and Steelers. So we're gonna move to the interior offensive line. So out of the entire AFC West and the Steelers, we only had one player that made this list, and it is Quinn Miners at number 4. I think we all agree here. Me personally, I'd have him a little higher, but he's a great guard. Do we have anything to add to this? No.
Quinn's an absolute beast, and there's not a chance in hell the Chargers were going to be in contention for interior offensive line. I have, nothing but great things to say about Quinn, and you guys representing there.
Perfect. All right, so the tackle position, this one kind of surprised me, and I don't really know how this list was made as far as if this was based off of last year or if we're projecting into the future. But the first tackle to make this list out of the AFC West or Steelers was Joe Alt, and he was at number 9. So having him at number 9 kind of makes me think that we're projecting a little bit here. And if that's the case, I agree with this. Joe Alt is fantastic. He's a beast. He's awesome. And then at number 10, we had Garrett Bowles. And I'm glad that he's on this list. Again, as a Broncos fan, I think he should be higher. If we're talking based off of last year, he was the number 1 tackle in the NFL. But if we're projecting into the future, sure, he's at number 10. He's in the top 10. I'm happy with that. And then we did have an honorable mention here from executive scouts and coaches, having Rashawn Slater. So again, this has to be projecting into the future because he didn't play at all last year. When Rashawn Slater's healthy, he is one of the premier tackles in this league. So what do we think about these tackles?
Yeah, I'll go first. I think it's a combination of both what they've done in the league and how they project moving forward. I think both those things are kind of coming in conjunction with each other to make this list. Joe Alt making it at number 9 after only playing 6 games and being 2 years into the league. All that does is show what this league thinks of Joe Alt. This guy has played 1.5 seasons in the league, and they have no doubts but to pencil him as a top 10. And if you read the reports from these executives, they talk about him being the next Lane Johnson of the NFL. Joe Alt should, if he plays all 17 games, climb into the top 5 of this list. And the only reason I'm not saying Garrett Bowles had a better season than Joe Alt, and obviously he played, and his consistency and availability is there. Uh-oh. Did we go down? I think we're still going. But the one thing I'll say with Garrett Bowles and Joe Alt is, and I don't think you would even argue this, Joe Alt's ceiling is much higher than a Garrett Bowles ceiling. And I think what they're projecting Joe Alt can be in this league is easy enough to pencil him in regardless of games played. He is just a specimen on the offensive line. He's going to be one of the best in the league for the next decade if injuries don't ruin his career. Garrett Bowles at 10, I have no issues with him making the top 10. I think he absolutely belongs in the top 10. I think when you look at what he did last year, he should be higher than number 10. I think them putting him at 10 is maybe the early struggles of his career in the first 1 to 2 years, and the fact that was the first year he made an all-pro list. That was the first year he made a Pro Bowl as a tackle. Maybe they're just saying, let's see it again from him, but that season was good enough to make him one of the best. I'm not saying I agree with that, but if I had to say why they're putting him there, maybe that's it, just because, that's that one season where he was a top 1, top 2, top 3 tackle, made the Pro Bowl, made an all-pro list. Now let's see if you can do it again, because we've seen you struggle. Now we've seen you be one of the best. Now let's get some consistency in it. Maybe that's it. And then with Rashawn Slater, the guy got hurt the year before, gets paid insane money, and then doesn't play a single snap, not even a single game in 2025. Him making this list after not playing a game in over a year just shows how talented Rashawn Slater is. This guy didn't even need to see a football field for a year for them to say we can put him as an honorable mention, because we know when Slater's on the field, he is one of the best left tackles in the entire National Football League. So I think if Alt and Slater stay healthy, I think you're going to see both of them in the top 10 again moving forward. And no Steelers made the list, so I don't know. What do you got for that?
Yeah, no Steelers. No, I honestly think they got majority of the top 10 correct overall. The order is subjective, and I think obviously there's a huge component of what are we looking forward to in 2026, as there's players that didn't play or played partial seasons and things like that in all these position rankings. The Chargers tackles duo, they're big and mean. I mean, they've got the potential for sure. Between Slater and Alt, obviously injuries, bad news last year. So they're going to need to stay healthy. And where they fall on this list, should they be on the list after an injury, that's up for debate. But they obviously have the potential. They should be anchors for you guys when they're on the field for a long time. Yeah, you got both sides, selected. And I think I'll give you some flowers on Garrett Bowles. Obviously, he deserves to be higher than where he is at 10. I'm glad he is on the top 10. Should be higher in terms of ranking. I think why, who knows? I think the beginning of Garrett Bowles' career, he struggled.
Awful.
I think that probably still has a little bit of stain on him. And so, like to Matthew's point, like we got to see it, right? Can you go out there and do it again next year? And is this the Garrett Bowles we have for the foreseeable future for the Broncos going forward? But no question, after we saw last year that he belongs on the lists, and so I don't have many issues with the top 10 that came out there on tackles.
Perfect. All right. So the last position that we have here for offense is going to be the tight end position. So that means that no wide receivers made this list, no running backs.
I think Kenneth Walker made it.
Oh,
he did make it, but that was
this.
I was focusing on R3, but yeah, Kenneth Walker made it for running backs. Otherwise, R3 teams, nobody receivers. I think Ladd and Waddle received votes, but that's it. So tight end is the next room that we have representatives.
Yeah, so Pat Freiermuth for tight end for the Pittsburgh Steelers was an honorable mention. He didn't make the top 10, but he is an honorable mention. And then Arande Gadsden, he received some votes, but was not listed as an honorable mention. So, Ryan, let's get your view on Pat Freiermuth here. Is he someone that you think can crack the top 10 after this year?
Maybe. It's about usage. He doesn't belong on the top 10 right now.
Yeah.
I love Pat. I think I'm glad we retained him. Our tight end room is getting crowded, which hurts him in terms of overall production. He's sharing, snap count and stuff, but we used him horribly last year, honestly. When you saw like in the games where we had comeback wins and we had successful touchdown drives, like with our offenses, when we're finding Pat, especially over the middle, big mismatches with linebackers and stuff. I think his talent is there. He's a good blocker too. Not a top 10 tight end. I don't think he's elite by any means or anything like that. If we use him and he's more of a premier pass catcher and like the guy in the tight end room, it's possible, if he was an honorable mention in this list, maybe he cracks 10th next year. But I don't think he's a solidified top 10 tight end.
I just think with Pat Freiermuth, he kind of gets a little underrated just because he is. When I think of him, like I think of like the ultimate like well-rounded tight end, and that's not flashy, So that's kind of why I think he didn't crack the top 10 here, just because he doesn't have the statistics to necessarily back it up. But when we're talking about a well-rounded guy there at the tight end position, Pat Freiermuth might be one of the better ones at that. So.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of his game in general. I think back to the glory days with Big Ben, and we had Heath Miller for a long time, who became, he was by no means an elite, prospect coming in. He wasn't an elite tight end in terms of talent or athleticism, but he was Big Ben's security blanket and consistently. And so because of that, he was able to be the third down guy, right? The goal line guy and all of that, and added blocking to it. So I have no concerns about Pat, his spot on the roster or anything like that. I just hope we use the guy better.
Yeah. And then what I will say here, so like I said, Arande Gadsden received some votes here. I have a sneaking suspicion that he will be climbing these ranks as far as tight end goes in the entire National Football League real quick. I'm a big fan of Gadsden.
Yeah, I'll start just giving my take on Pat. You took my thunder with the well-rounded tight end. He is, man. He's good in the red zone. He's good in the middle. He runs decent routes. He's a good blocker. He's good size. Pat Freiermuth is a guy you'd love to have on your team. He is just a well-rounded football player. He's a good tight end. Is he this star, flashy Sam Laporta, Brock Bowers, Kyle Pitts, whatever? No, he's not, but he is so important to that team, and Pat Freiermuth is a really good tight end. So I don't believe he should be a top 10 tight end. However, I am perfectly fine as an honorable mention. I think he's an awesome player. Gadsden receiving votes, I was really happy to see just some recognition from people around the league after that season. I don't think he should be making the top 10, and I don't think he should be an honorable mention yet. So I'm perfectly fine with this. But like Nick, I also think in the coming years, maybe as early as one more year, some of those guys at the end of the top 10 are Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce, who we know are quickly aging out of their primes and are on their way out of the league rather quickly. Gadsden is primed to take one of those spots, and I think it could happen sooner than later. I think from a guy that was a healthy scratch for the first 2 to 3 games of that season, not really utilized until they started realizing, this guy is more pro-ready than we thought he was. Gadsden's going to make this list. And with the league loving the receiving tight ends that put together that flashiness, Gadsden's going to climb. The knock on his game is his size and being a blocker, because he was a former wide receiver transitioned to tight end at Syracuse and a 5th-round pick. But he just set the franchise record for a rookie tight end for the Chargers in receptions and yards. And he did that in not a ton of usage and not even playing the first 2 to 3 games. I think anyone that watched Gadsden after like week 4, week 5 can realize that he's got it. He has that versatility, his receiving game, his yards after catch, his catch radius. He's very talented, and I'm really excited to see what we have in Oronde. I'm glad that he received some votes just to recognize what he did as a rookie, and I think he's going to become a household name rather quickly.
Well, I mean, you think Justin Herbert's going to throw for 6,000 yards this year, so Gadsden will probably have 2,000 yards receiving this year, and he'll be number 1 on this list, right?
I got a question for Nick. I like, and talking about the tight ends, the tight end position is evolving. I mean, the athleticism of tight ends, like these receiving tight ends, you got Brock Bowers, right? Sam Laporta, Kyle Pitts. That's where the position's going. Mm-hmm. I feel like when I watch the Broncos offense, I want to ask you, I feel like tight end is what holds that offense back more than anything. Mm-hmm. I think obviously adding Jalen Waddle to the mix at receiver certainly going to help things in general. But at tight end, do you feel like that's your biggest opportunity area as an offense to either, one, do you feel like that is the opportunity area, but 2, do you feel like you have the guys in the room that can solve that need, or are they still outside that you need to go get one?
Yeah, so I think that the biggest opportunity on this offense, I believe, is staying consistent to the run game. I think that that's kind of where I would like to see just the play calling take effect this year. When J.K. Dobbins went down last year, you saw Sean Payton run the ball 10 times a game. It was bad. There was no balance whatsoever. So I feel like in the running back room, we have at least more depth there to where we can commit to it a little bit more. But when we're talking about the tight end position, it's a little scary. It is for sure. We did have somewhat high hopes for Evan Engram going into last year, and I think that he was pretty underutilized. And when there was opportunities for him, I don't think he necessarily made the best of them. What I will say is, yes, it needs to improve significantly this year. But, as we're moving into training camp and it's still the off season, it's the time for hope. And I do have hope there. And the reason why I have hope for our tight end room this year is because of Davis Webb. He is the new offensive coordinator. He's taking over play calling. And I would like to make I don't even know what I'm trying to say here, but Davis Webb and Evan Engram are really good friends. They played together when they were both New York Giants. And the reason why Evan Engram came to Denver is because of Davis Webb. So I think that there's going to be much more of a focal point when it comes to getting Evan Engram involved. and we'll see kind of how that shakes out. Do I have high hopes for it? No. Do I think it needs to improve? Yes. Do I think that there will be a focal point there? I do. So yeah, we'll see how it shakes out.
That makes sense.
Go ahead.
Perfect. All right. So that's enough about tight ends, and that actually ends all of the offense. So we will go to the defensive side of the ball. We're going to start in the secondary. Only one safety made this list, and that is Derwin James, and he came in at number 2. Matthew, how do you feel about that? Do you think he should be number 1?
I think when you look at in terms of as a player and their versatility, I think he should be number 1. With that being said,
who was
Kyle Hamilton.
Oh, yeah.
So with that being said, Kyle Hamilton with Baltimore did slot in at 1. And I don't even have that much of heartburn about it. Kyle Hamilton is an insane football player. He's going to be one of the next generation of safeties to run this league for the next decade in football. He's incredible. I love his game. I love what he brings to the table. His age, versatility, what he's going to do moving forward. I like Kyle Hamilton a lot. I think when you look, if this was based on the value to a team, I think Derwin has to be your number 1. Just because Derwin has some things that Kyle Hamilton can't do, at least to the level that Derwin James can do them. And what I mean by that is playing off-ball linebacker, lining up as your third or fourth edge rusher and taking a free run at the quarterback, shedding blocks of the offensive line, his tackling ability, his ability to go be a slot corner rather than a free safety or a strong safety. I think the versatility of Derwin should make him number 1. However, when we're looking at just pure safeties, I agree Kyle Hamilton at 1. I don't have an issue with that. I'm happy to see Derwin jumped this list. I think last year he was at 5 or 6, I believe, and then quickly rose back up to number 2. I think it's a given. I don't think anybody in this room will have a bad thing to say about Derwin James. So happy to see him on this list. Happy to see him representing the top 2 of the position. League wide. Are you able to plug that in from here? I can get you an extension cord.
Maybe.
But yeah, Derwin James at 2. Last year he actually played nickel for us, so he was a nickel corner for us for the whole year. So Nick's grabbing a charger for his computer, so I'll just turn it over to Ryan. You have anything regarding the safety room? And I think we're the only ones. I think Jalen Ramsey. I think he was honorable mention or received votes.
Yeah. It's funny, but like a few years ago when the Steelers had Minkah Fitzpatrick, we always had arguments about that. And I feel like they were close in their primes, like between Derwin and Minkah. I mean, there was a time you could argue probably those were the top 2 in the league at the time. Minkah's obviously not with the Steelers anymore and has started to decline. But Derwin's the guy, I agree. And I think it's the days of being solely just a coverage safety are also changing. So like you mentioned, how you utilize Derwin James up at the line of scrimmage. He can blitz, he can tackle. It's almost like you're playing like a Swiss Army knife, hybrid linebacker to coverage safety on the back end. Freak athlete, no issues with that. He probably should be number 1, and I'm a Ravens hater, so screw that Kyle Hamilton guy. Let's go Derwin James.
You got anything on Derwin, or just want to move on?
No, I mean, Derwin James is awesome. He's Swiss Army knife. He's great. As far as linebacker goes, it's pretty weak here in the AFC West. So no guys made the list, not even as an honorable mention. But I think that the Steelers have one guy, Patrick Queen, and I'm of the opinion that he doesn't even belong on this list at all.
I agree.
So, I mean, he was terrible last year.
Yep.
He is aging. He's slow. So I don't know why he's on this list, but he's there. So what do you guys think?
My
about this?
only issue with this, Queen had some good years in this league, primarily when he was a Baltimore Raven and made a name for himself right out the gate. Do I think he still belongs? I don't. And I think we're going to quickly see him pushed out of this list as it continues moving into the next couple seasons. I think Queen's decline isn't that 1 year one-off. I think his years are behind him, and I don't foresee him being on this list next season when we do this. My only issue, and maybe this is my Charger bias, but I think you'll disagree because you're a fan of him as well. But I think Deion Henley should have been an honorable mention. I know he had a down year, but Deion Henley has a lot to offer, and he's only going to get better. His first year as a starter was fantastic, and then last year he did have a little bit of a dip, but he battled a lot that year as well. So I think Deion Henley is going to elevate himself into this room. Maybe not a top 10, but I think Deion Henley should have been an honorable mention over Patrick Queen. That's all I got to say.
I will actually agree with that, surprisingly. I started watching Henley highlights because I had no idea who this
He's a beast.
was
I like
last year.
him.
Yeah, he's got game. Patrick Queen, disappointment, man. I'm totally on board with that. I think the only reason he could have been on this as far as an honorable mention is looking forward to next year with the new staff. Maybe there's a way for them to utilize him differently more because he's better in the run game. He's got to quit being exposed and left out on islands, in the coverage game. He's too slow for that. He was a trade candidate this year. I actually think this is his last year as a Pittsburgh Steeler. So no issues with him not being on this list.
Perfect. So we're going to move to the defensive line. So at defensive tackle, we had one guy that made the top 10 here in the AFC West, and that is going to be Zach Allen. He came in at number 4. He is incredible. When the guy, we're talking about pass rush. He is one of the premier guys when it comes to interior pass rush, and he plays a huge part in our run game. Matthew, I know that you are a huge fan of Zach Allen, but I feel like there's not really much to add here outside of you saying that he is a beast.
There's not much more you could say about the guy. Like Ryan said, he had to start watching more of Deion Henley to figure out who he was. I quickly found myself recognizing who Zach Allen is just with more Broncos games that I watch. It was impossible to get through a Broncos game without looking at Zach Allen or watching something of him. So I didn't know much about Zach Allen previously, and I honestly probably disrespected the player that he was in the game that he had. And through more exposure of just watching him, he passes the eye test for me to dive deeper into Zach Allen. And you can't make any list without Zach Allen in the top 10, much less the top 5, 6, 7. Don't do it. Zach Allen in there. So, yeah, all the credit to you guys. Zach Allen's a fantastic player. And then Cam Hayward still receiving votes, which quite honestly, at his age, to still receive votes is impressive. I mean, that dude's, how old is he now, 38?
Yeah, 37, 38.
Yeah, he's high 30s. For him to still be receiving votes at that type of position that's dominated by the youth of the league, a lot of respect to Cam Hayward. This guy has done it for the last decade of his career, and he's a future Hall of Fame player, in my opinion.
Give us your thoughts on Cam Hayward there.
Oh, man. He's probably he's got to be top 3 favorite Steelers. In general, the dude, one, is just an awesome person. And he's got history with his dad's career and everything like that. And when he came out of Ohio State, he hit the ground running. He obviously, is an ageless wonder at this point. I'm not saying, his play is the same, but last year, statistically, it actually lined up with a lot of his prime years on what he was able to do. And so how long that can continue, I don't know. The decline is inevitable to start happening with him, but so I hope, we get things in together as far as replacing Cam, but I'm just going to enjoy him as long as we got him. He's a force, especially on the inside. Without him, our defense would be a whole lot worse, no doubt.
Perfect. All right, so we have 2 more position groups to talk about here. We're going to go into the edge position. So we have
Bullshit.
It's not, but
it will be.
Yeah. All right. We have TJ Watt coming in at number 7. For this, I think that it clearly is projecting a drop off from him going into the future. Last year wasn't nearly as dominant as what he has been in his career, but I feel like he's kind of in that in-between area where, he is not young anymore, but he's also not, old. So I think at number 7, I think it might be a little too low for him because he is one of the premier pass rushers in this league. So yeah, TJ Watt coming in at number 7. Then we have one more guy. We have Nick Bonito at number 10. And this one to me, if I had to take a guess as to why he is at number 10, it's because of his all-around game. When it comes to the run game, he has significantly improved, but he is not one of the premier guys at the edge position when it comes to stopping the run, and his pass coverage is pretty bad. But when we're talking about just pure pass rush, and when we're talking about the edge position, that's kind of what matters the most. Nick Bonito is a top 5 guy at rushing the passer. So having him at number 10 here feels a little low to me, but I'm at least happy that he is in the top 10.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Benito on yours, I mean, he was arguably, you could argue that he was your most important defender last year, just the way that the big splash plays and stuff like that. And when I think of edge rushers, right, everyone focuses on sacks, and I'll talk about that with TJ, but it's disruption in general, and that can include the run game. You're punching out footballs. You're just getting in the face even when you're not getting a sack. And so Benito definitely belongs on the top 10. I think he's got a hell of a future going forward. You got to hang on to that guy. I would say TJ, I don't have a problem with 7. I mean, there was a while, I mean, him and Myles Garrett have been the premier pass rushers for the last 5+ years, right? And change, and just trading off Defensive Player of the Year awards and sack records, right? TJ tying it, Myles breaking it last year. I don't think that TJ has fallen off a cliff. I think when you're looking at just sack production, of course, massive difference there. He's not putting up double-digit sacks, much less 20+ sacks, right? Can he get back to that? I hope so. But TJ still, even last year, the upper body injuries have had a bigger impact on him than that. Like when he tore his pec, he separated his shoulder. That's definitely slowing down his edge rush moves. But, I mean, in the run game, the guy is still a pure disruptor. I don't think he's on the last couple of years of his run. Will he ever be a Defensive Player of the Year sack leader again? We'll see. I wouldn't, be disappointed even if he wasn't, because I know the other things that TJ does and brings to the table. I hope we don't get rid of the guy. I hope he's a Steeler for life, but I still think he's an elite player. Production, though, you can't lie, especially with lists like this. That's why I would, last year, if you would have put him at 7, I would have had a heart attack, but the production wasn't there last year, so no problem.
So we can knock TJ for his lack of production and have him at number 7, but Justin Herbert's lack of production, we're going to have him at 7 and argue for him to be higher?
I mean, I don't think Justin Herbert, back to quarterback, had that big of a drop in production.
He hasn't hit 4,000 yards in 3 years, Ryan.
Right, so he stayed stagnant. He didn't drop.
Bo Nix didn't hit 4,000 and led the league in pass attempts by like 100.
Okay.
And that motherfucker still couldn't get over top 15 QBR or 4,000 yards. That's wild.
So Bo Nix,
this is going to go, dude.
He had the worst QBR and worst accuracy rating in the first quarter out of all quarterbacks in the NFL the last 2 years.
Yeah,
when it comes to
he's clutch.
When it comes to not being scripted,
we're not going back to quarterback.
All right, fine, whatever.
Comebacks versus the Giants. Ooh.
Yeah.
All right, so here's my take on the edge. TJ still belongs in this top 10 list, but I will tell you, get used to TJ in that 7 to 12 range, because that's going to be the consistent moving forward. And that's not trying to shit on TJ, but you look at guys like Will Anderson, Aiden Hutchinson, Max Crosby, Brian Burns, like all these other guys shaking out the list. TJ is the reality is he's behind them now, and I think that's going to continue from his age and his injuries. But he still belongs, and he's still very, very useful, very elite player. Nick. Nick, so
yeah. 1 year at
Nick
1.
Bonito at 10. Get used to seeing Nick Bonito higher than 10. And this is, again, like I'll give you all the credit as a Broncos fan. Nick Bonito's a fucking awesome player, man. Nothing but bad things to say about him. Here's the only rant I'll go on before we can move on. I'm not saying Tuli Pelotu deserves the top 10. No. Hold on. I'm not saying Tuli deserves top 10. He doesn't. But I just want to talk about some of these other players on honorable mention receiving votes. Josh Hines-Allen, Trayvon Walker, Jalen Phillips, Montez Sweat, Latu, Nick Herbig, and Alex Highsmith. There's not one of those players better than Tuipulotu. Not one. Jalen Phillips just got $30 million a year, and he's never had more than 8 sacks in his career. Tuipulotu, I understand he's young. He's 23 years old, and he just had his first breakout year. It's the only year he had a chance to because he was behind Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. Tuipulotu just put up a 13-sack season, ranking top 5 in the NFL in sacks, top 5 in the NFL in pressures, and he's more well-rounded than all of those guys due to his run defense. So Tuipulotu, he should be on the border of cracking this list in the next year. I do think he'll replicate it. I do think he's a rising star. He just made his first Pro Bowl. There's not a chance in hell Jalen Phillips is better than Tuipulotu or Trayvon Walker or, I'm sorry, but Nick Herbig, Alex Highsmith. Those are not Tuipulotu level players. So my only take on this list isn't even the top 10. It just falls outside of just because the guy Tuli needs more respect, and he's going to get it soon. But that's all I got to say about Edge. If you wanna move forward, I think we got one position group left. But Tuli is going to be on there, and put this in your calendar. It's happening.
Yeah.
So.
This is the classic Matthew of projecting a Chargers player to be the next all-time great. So I'm surprised he didn't say that he's the next, like, Lawrence Taylor or something. Could be. Yeah, could be, he says. Be. All right. So we have one more position group here. It is the cornerback position. This is real easy. Patrick Surtain's at number 1. Matthew, shut the hell up, dude. You guys are just so dumb. He is the clear number 1. I think that when we're talking about talent, as we do with Justin Herbert, Pat Surtain might be the most talented corner of all time. He is like fundamentally sound. He's ginormous. Like you could hear from any wide receiver that plays against this guy. He is a freak of nature. Pat Surtain has the ability to go down as one of the top, certainly 5 best corners of all time. So we're going to leave that there. And then we have Joey Porter Jr. as an honorable mention here. The guy was incredible last season. He really had that breakout last year. Me personally, I'd put him in the top 10 already. But with that being said, I mean, the NFL has a ton of great corners. But I think that if Joey Porter Jr. is able to even 80% backup of what he did last year, he will solidify himself as a top 10 corner in this league. So do we have any rebuttals to Pat Surtain being at number 1?
Probably not. I mean,
probably not.
Houston says Stingley.
Derek Stingley
would be
a
the
badass.
only challenger.
He's a badass. But I feel like even with him being a challenger, there's no challenger for number 1 in this league when it comes to corner.
I mean, Charles Woodson, Deion Sanders. I don't know if
they're all
Surtain's
great, but we have to put Surtain in this conversation.
He's very, very elite. Yes, there's no question about that. Joey, I know you probably got a couple Chargers that are in the in the workings of cracking the top 10 at corner as well. But Joey Porter, I think the best thing about him is like his improvement year to year. When he came in, we got him at the last pick of the first pick of the second round with a trade from Chase Claypool, which that ended up panning out great for us. Yeah. But Joey's been really developing each year. He's gotten better each year. He's gotten he still takes a little too many penalties. He's a little handsy on the holding, but positionally, and he's always matched with the top receiver, on the opposite opponent team, which is what you want out of your top outside corner. I think we've surrounded him well this year too. I'd like to see him see the top 10, but I honestly have no issues with anyone who did make the top 10. Like in terms of corners, I feel like there's a lot of talented cornerbacks that do different ways and styles of play. So I'm not butthurt about him not being on the list, but I'd like to see him on there. He's good.
All right, Matthew, make your case for whatever Charger did make the list.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Yeah. No. I'll start with Surtain. That is, without a question, the number 1 corner in the NFL. And I say that being a huge fan of Derek Stingley's game and we just talked about Stingley. I think if you look at corners, league of its own is Pat Surtain, league of its own is Derek Stingley, and then you have the rest. I think the gap of Stingley and the rest is high. And then I think you also have a gap of Surtain and Stingley. And I think that's like your tiers here. So if you're ever going to argue someone with Pat Surtain, it better be Derek Stingley. That is the only guy you can put in the same conversation. And even with that being said, I don't think he's even in that same tier. And I love Derek Stingley, man. That dude, there's not even a knock on him. He is one of the best corners that you'll ever see come through your franchise doors. So big fan of Derek Stingley, but Pat Surtain, hats off to you guys. That from having a guy like Champ Bailey growing up through your life to now going through a decade plus of Pat Surtain, you guys are spoiled. So, all right.
Hey, go ahead, Matthew.
No, I'm going to jump to Joey Porter next. So I didn't look at the full top 10 list, so I'm not going to confidently come out here and say Joey Porter should be top 10 without educating myself on the top 10 list. But it would be disrespectful to make a top 10 list without talking about Joey Porter. And I hate that I have to say that because I was really hoping he was going to suck and be a bust because I love to talk shit to you about – I fucked that up. To talk shit to you about that. But, dude, that kid's fucking good, man. And he's going to be good for a long time. You guys nailed it for a second-round corner, and what you're going to get out of him for the next 5-10 years is remarkable. So Joey Porter is a fantastic corner. You have your CB1 locked up for a long time. So, all right. You ready?
Here you go.
Oh, boy.
No Charger should have made this list.
Correct. Not even close to
However,
the list.
there is one guy.
Oh,
There's one guy that should be on the fringe of talking about in terms of receiving votes. And I'm going more off of the last 2 years of his career, and I hope that this trajectory continues. And maybe this guy's familiar with him. His name is Dante Jackson. Okay? Familiarize yourself with Dante Jackson. This dude is a fucking baller. And he primarily made his name as a ball hawk corner that sucked at tackling. That was kind of what led him out of Pittsburgh before he signed with the Chargers. There was no questions about Dante Jackson's game and coverage and being a ball hawk. The dude just couldn't tackle worth a shit. And that was the big knock. However, Dante Jackson just put together a borderline Pro Bowl type season. And just to add some data to that, let's talk about this. Team high, 12 passes defended. So he allowed 24 receptions last year, which is the second fewest among all cornerbacks league-wide with 400 coverage snaps. 400 coverage snaps, 24 receptions allowed. Second in the entire NFL in that category. He had 4 interceptions, which is third in the entire NFL amongst all corners. And let's see. He called for one single penalty the entire year and ranked top 12 in coverage snaps. And 4 interceptions was the highest in the entire NFL, specifically in zone coverage for a corner. Dante Jackson is very good, and he is not your high name, sought-after cornerback. You probably know a little bit about him watching him in Pittsburgh. We don't have a star-studded group, but Dante Jackson is a very, very reliable corner. He just had one of the best years of his career, probably the best year of his entire career, and we're very lucky to have him. If he can continue that, I don't even have any issues with him not being mentioned at all after that one season. But I'll tell you, if he can do that again for a second consecutive season, you're going to start to see Dante Jackson's name come up in some of these conversations.
I'm going to be completely honest. I didn't listen to a single thing you just said because
Dante, I'll give it. He was only a Steeler for 1 year, but I think he started in Carolina. Before Pittsburgh, and he was it 1 year or 2 year with us? I think just one.
No, he played more than one.
Two? It wasn't much, but yeah, I mean, definitely a ball hawk. Interceptions is his specialty for sure. Reads the game well. I do think there's probably just consistently 10 better corners that are more trustworthy to match one-on-one against the opposing superstar receiver, which is kind of how you measure corners in general. But honorable mention, yeah, no, I agree. I mean, he's a very valuable player. I would build around him to get a cornerback room, around him, but a guy you should keep around. He's a good player.
All right.
That's all. I just wanted to put his name out there.
Perfect. Well, I am very sad that we are ending this episode on Dante Jackson. Thank you. Yeah. So
we're gonna run a
no. With that being said, we have gone extremely long on this episode, so we are going to end this one. We're going to maybe do like a part 2 type of thing. It'll probably be broken up into separate weeks. We'll kind of see how it goes. Maybe we'll do like a Monday release and then like a Thursday release. Who knows? But yeah, with that being said, we are going to end this one here. So yeah, Ryan, thank you so much for being a part of this one. I believe we are going to have you on next week's episode, given that we are here and we're going to record it now. So if you watch our podcast, that's why we aren't going to be changing clothes. But yeah, this was fun. Ryan, thank you so much. Do you have any final words for us as you leave the Wild West Banter podcast?
Just keep it up. Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to be a guest. You guys are kicking ass. So, you guys are boosting your viewership and everything. I love the content. Listen to it on the way to work every day. So, yeah, appreciate you having me, and go Steelers as always.
Oh, boy. All right. Well, yeah, Matthew, any last
No,
thoughts
just want to
from
say
you?
thanks for coming on, Ryan, and I know we're going to have another episode here shortly with you, so happy to have you. I fully expect that you're going to be a routine guest on this show as we progress through training camp and the season, and the only thing I'll say is for the next one, we're going to get some more arguments. I thought Ryan and Nick would throw blows maybe an episode or two into this. This was too civil for Wild West Banter.
Well,
this
honestly,
was too civil for Truffle. So
it was, but
yeah.
Ryan was very realistic today.
I know. And so I don't want the audience to be fooled by what Ryan just did to you guys. He put on a persona that he's some reasonable football fan. He's not.
No,
he's not.
Typically Ryan's a piece of shit. He is.
So with that being said, maybe this next episode will bring forth a little more controversy, and I think we have some good topics. We're going to do a short episode after this, so make sure you tune in. Thanks, guys.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much. We will see you on the next episode. Go Broncos.